Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen so that all of you can see what I'm seeing. So today's topic is going to be about hosting a regional pitch event. We're going to walk through the different options for hosting an event and provide an overview of the rules and regulations for hosting a Technovation event. But before we get started, I want to do a quick icebreaker and ask you, what is one thing you are proud of this Technovation season? So I can go first. One thing I'm proud of is that we've recruited several underserved schools in the Bay Area. So we have 50 girls who are participating who are from low-income backgrounds and minority backgrounds in the Bay Area. We've also made a lot of strategic partnerships with low-income schools and nonprofits. So that's a great effort at reaching more girls who come from low-income backgrounds. What is one thing that you are proud of this Technovation season? Feel free to unmute yourself and share with us. Is there anyone who would like to go and share one thing you're proud of?
Yeah, this is Jean. We've grown our number of teams this year by 15%.
Awesome. Great job, Jean. Anyone else? I can brag on behalf of all of you if you're feeling shy.
Yeah, in line with what you were saying, Katie, here in Venezuela is the first time that we are running the Technovation, and we have 38 girls from very, very unprivileged areas, very poor slums, and for them, for many of them, it was the first time that we're opening even an email address.
Wow.
So we are starting from below the water, but
right.
with a lot of energy and with a lot of enthusiasm.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. Anyone else? Something you're proud of this Technovation season? All right. In that case, I'll go back and we'll get started on the presentation. So, big news is that submissions are now live. So students are able to start their submissions right now on the platform. And you can actually view those team submissions from your dashboard. So if you haven't seen that yet, I'm going to show you what it looks like from a regional ambassador's perspective. Let me try refreshing this page. There we go. So I'm going to click submissions, and then I can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that have started their submissions in California, and I can actually see their progress. So this is a little bit different from last year because it'll show you their progress bar, which is great for keeping track of them. So if I click on this team right here, I can see that they haven't uploaded their pitch video or demo video or their business plan. The one thing they have done is they've chosen their development platform. They said that they are using Swift to code their app. So I can keep track of what they're working on here. This is where their app description would be. So this is going to be super helpful for you in terms of planning your regional pitch event to understand how many teams are on track for submission, and to be able to follow up with these teams to see if they need extra help or how you can better support them and their mentor in completing their submission. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to show you is the inactivity notices. This will also be helpful for when you're trying to understand who are the active teams in your region and who are the inactive ones. So I can see here that these students have not been active for a while now. So that tells me that maybe they aren't as engaged in Technovation. They signed up, but need a little bit of extra help. So if I click on this student, I can see what school she goes to and reach out to her. I can also reach out to her teacher, because I know her teacher, and see what challenges she might be facing. So that's helpful also in terms of understanding who's on track for submission or who needs help finding teams and who needs a little bit of extra support from all of you. Can you all still see my screen? I'm making sure that I'm, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So just a review of the technician timeline. Submission is April 25th at 5:00 p.m. Pacific time. So this is going to be really important for you to communicate this to your teams. Sometimes the girls and the mentors are confused about what time they need to be able to submit and what time is the deadline. So being able to convert that into your local time zone, whether that's 8 p.m. Eastern or whether that's 2 a.m. in your local time zone, you need to be able to tell that to their team so that they have a very good understanding of the local time for them to submit their apps. The regional pitch events are going to be held May 1st through May 20th. That's when the first round of judging starts, both virtual and in person at your local events. The semifinalists are going to be announced May 31st, and then the finalists are going to be announced at the end of June, with World Pitch happening July 30th through August 3rd. And that's when we bring our finalists to San Francisco.
Katie,
Yeah.
I have a question. When would the teams be able to see their scores? Has that been decided yet?
Yeah, let me double check the calendar for that exact date. I would imagine that it's going to be in June, but I'll follow up with the exact date that the teams can view their scores. It's typically after the finalists are announced, but I can follow up with that exact date of when the scores are released.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the award structure. Sometimes that can be a little bit confusing how the rounds of judging work. So when students submit, they either have an option of submitting virtually, or if you plan on hosting a regional pitch event, they can select your local event. The second round of judging is going to be completely online. So we don't have a semifinals in different regions around the world. We just have a completely virtual round of judging. And then from there, we'll select our runner-up teams who are our regional winners who will receive a prize from Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, and South America. And then we have our finalists who are invited to World Pitch, 6 junior division teams and 6 senior division team who are our global finalists. So a basic brief overview, we're going to dive into each of these areas. But a regional pitch event, you've heard this a lot from me, but there's a 10-team minimum required for either the senior division or the junior division with 3 to 5 judges. A celebration event, that's considered unofficial. It's a great way to celebrate the girls' accomplishments, but there's no minimum number of teams. So if you have 5 teams, that's great. If you can't hold your event within that official time frame, this is a great option for you as well. And the teams are judged virtually. Judges, if you have judges at your celebration event, their scores are not going to count. It's really just feedback for the girls. The teams are going to be judged virtually. And so you can hold this event any way that you see fit, at any time you see fit. There's some less regulations and rules around that event, which is a little bit more flexible. And then another option for you is just hosting no event, where students are judged online in the virtual pool. And I do want to say that regardless of your choice, the teams at World Pitch represent both the virtual category and the regional pitch events. So we have had teams who started out in the virtual category and went all the way to World Pitch, and we have teams that won at their local level at a regional pitch event and made it to World Pitch.
Katie,
Yeah.
there was a question online about how many judges. I think there's some confusion as to judging what you just said relative to how many judges. That's number of judges per team, right? 3 to 5.
Yeah, was that in the chat box?
Yeah, I guess.
Let me see. Okay, let's see. Can we have more than 5 judges if we have more teams? So I think that's fine if you have more than 5 judges. If you say you have 20 teams, you could have 5 judges in one room and you could have 5 judges in another room. As long as there's like 10 teams in one room and 10 teams in another, you can divide it up as you see fit. as long as the teams have at least 3 scores. So that is possible to have more than 5 judges. Just keep in mind that each of your teams need to have at least a minimum of 3 scores.
I can make a comment regarding that. So last year we had 61 teams, and we had them present in 12 rooms, and we had 4 to 6 judges per room. That meant we had 61 total judges. So, and each judge judged up to 5 or 6 teams. So you can have them judge more. It depends on your region and what their commitment is.
Yeah, Jean has a unique setup because she has such a large region where she has so many teams. So if you have a large number of teams, thinking about your judge allocation and how many teams they're judging, that can come in really handy with making sure that your teams have the required number of evaluations. So I'm going to wait until a Q&A portion right after I go through a little bit more about the regional pitch event, and I'll return to doing some open Q&A and looking at the chat box. So if you are hosting a regional pitch event, if you have 10 teams, one team will be guaranteed to advance on to the semifinals. If you have 11 to 20 teams, then 2 teams will be guaranteed to advance on to the semifinals, and so on. Like I mentioned, teams do have the option of attending a live pitch or being judged virtually. They cannot do both for that first round of judging. So we will ensure through our platform that students will be unable, if they sign up for your regional pitch event, we will make sure that they can't leave your regional pitch event and enter the virtual category. They can't do both without, they cannot be judged both. And then one important requirement for hosting a regional pitch event is that you register your event on the platform by March 20th. So this feature isn't live yet, but when you register your event, it will ensure that students can sign up for your event and be placed into that regional pitch event category so that your judges can see those teams and give them their scores. So if your team does not sign up for your regional pitch event on the platform, or you do not place them into your regional pitch event, then your judges won't be able to see them on the platform. So it's really important that you register your event once that feature goes live, which I will make sure to let you know when it does. If you are a mentor yourself and a regional ambassador, if you're working with teams, then you can't recruit judges. You would need to have someone help you recruit judges because that's a conflict of interest. We want to make sure that it's fair for all students and just fair across the board. So make sure that you have someone help you recruit judges if you yourself are mentoring. The live pitch is 4 minutes long, and students will create a PowerPoint or slide presentation to go along with their live pitch. The due date on this slide presentation is flexible. So it's not due at the day of submission. You can set your own deadline for this. So typically, if I'm hosting an event, I would ask that students send me their pitch presentation about a week in advance of my regional pitch event. So that way, you know, submission is a huge deal and it's exhausting for them. So giving them it's fine to put in some buffer time in between your event for them to give you your presentation. You just need to be able to clearly communicate that to your teams, that here in Nigeria, our pitch presentation, our slide deck is going to be due on this day at this time. So make sure that you send it to me. You need to be able to communicate that to your mentors and to your girls, the due date. And the judges, of course, are going to give feedback. They're going to ask questions. They'll have a judge rubric that they will use, which I'll go over in a few minutes about the different areas that they're looking at for the submissions. And then the winners are announced at your event, but please do not announce their scores. That should be kept private, and they'll have access to that after the event when the scores are released. So keep that in mind. This is a suggested format if you have around 10, 12 teams. So I would suggest a format of around 4 hours so that everyone's energetic and is really excited about the day. But I would suggest starting out the poster session for the girls to demo their apps so that the judges can walk around and look at what the girls have presented visually, so that they have a poster which explains their app idea, their business plan, why it's a problem, the market trends, anything that they want to share on their poster board, they can. It's pretty open-ended. It's to the girls' discretion. And then also being able to demo their app, show the different features that are on their app for the judges. So typically, you would run that before the pitching session. And during the pitching session, of course, that's when they're presenting and the judges ask them questions. So I would recommend that you keep judge comments and questions to around 2 minutes per team to keep it moving pretty quickly. And then lunchtime would be when the judges deliberate, the girls are relaxing, and prizes. So of course, this can be slightly tweaked, but depending on your needs of your region. But I would recommend a similar format to this, depending on the size of your event. Some places choose to have a speaker at the beginning of the program. That's a great way to engage the audience and inspire the girls. And some regions also choose to have prizes. So if you're fundraising for local prizes and want to give those away to your top teams, that's certainly a great way to motivate the girls and, you know, provide that sense of accomplishment for them. So like I mentioned, students who pitch live need to create a presentation, and that is not due on April 25th. So that is the only submission deliverable that's not due then. And a reminder that you would need to set that deadline of when they give that to you in advance of your event. Students can pitch in their local language. I am leaving that up to your discretion as a regional ambassador on whether or not you want the students to pitch in English or in their local language. The submissions can be in a local language, except for the business plan, app description, and team description. Those need to be in English because our judges, our online judges, are not going to translate it. So keep that in mind. The girls, their actual app, the text of the app can be in a different language. If it's in Arabic or French, whatever language, the text of the app can be in a different language. The pitch video and the demo video can be in another language, but it must be captioned in English. It has to be subtitled or dubbed in English. That is a mandatory requirement because we've had judges in the past, the girls submitted a pitch video and demo video in their local language, and they made it to the semifinals, and the judges are like, I can't understand this, I don't know how to score them. And so they can't give them an accurate score if you have a judge from a different country who's evaluating them in the virtual rounds in the semifinals. So it's really important that the girls are clear on that it needs to be subtitled, needs to be captioned, and their English written, the descriptions of their team and their app and their business plan needs to be in English. So all of that is available on the submission guidelines. So making sure that's crystal clear to your teams and supporting them in that. And then of course, incomplete submissions are not going to advance on to the next round. So keep that in mind, that the girls who are presenting at your regional pitch event need to have submitted. And if there's any girls who did not quite finish and did not submit, the judges need to know that these girls are just here for fun and here to present, but they did not submit and they're not eligible to compete. So I'm going to just power through this last part about in-person judging, then I'll pause for another round of Q&A. So mentors cannot be judges. We don't want a conflict of interest between the mentors and the teams that they're judging. So just stick to people who are not mentors, who will judge the girls in their online or their in-person submissions. The judging rubric is what they're going to be evaluating teams on. So if you need to translate this into another language, that's perfectly fine. We do have it available in a couple different languages, but they'll be judging teams based on ideation. So their app idea, the problem in their community, whether or not it's a real problem with evidence that they've addressed, technical area, whether or not their app is fully functionable and has no noticeable bugs, that the features are well thought out. The students do have a code checklist that they're going to be completing, but this is a self-evaluation. So whether or not they've used databases, whether or not they've used X, Y, and Z in their app, and it will automatically give them a set number of points based off of the fields they complete in that code checklist. And your in-person judges can see that score on their submission. For the pitch, that's where they're going to explaining, arguing why there is the best app on the market. They have a compelling storyline, and that their app is specific and to the point. Entrepreneurship, that's the only category that's for the senior division only. So the junior division teams, this is not applicable to them since they are not submitting a business plan. And then finally, how well the judges are impressed with their app, how unique it was, their presentation style, and just an overall impression, which is more of a subjective category. So this is what the judges will be evaluating, both our virtual judges and in-person judges at their regional pitch events. So I would encourage you to put your feelers out for people who might be willing to serve as judges. Up until around April, late April, you should have your judges lined up for your regional pitch event. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's an ideal judge? And I would say that any of these things. So they have expertise in the curriculum areas, whether it's coding, marketing, business, or pitching. They could be an investor, or they could be a software engineer. An inspiring figure for young girls. This could be someone who, maybe it's an ambassador or someone who is in the government ministry. An inspiring figure for them. It could be a university dean or president of the university. Or it could be a representative from a sponsor. So I think that's a great way to thank a sponsor for providing you with funds for your event. So including someone from your local company to represent their company and also judge the girls. Just keep in mind that they can't have full control. The sponsor cannot have full control over who's advancing onwards. It needs to be a collective decision that's made with your panel of judges. So it shouldn't be weighted in the favor of a sponsor. And that's never happened before, but I'm just putting that as a disclaimer. And then I would suggest that your judges start reviewing apps on May 1st. So a lot of times the judges, they might wait until the last minute, and they'll wait until the day of the regional pitch event to just do everything from their rubric. And I would actually suggest that you really, really encourage them to start reviewing the app submissions on May 1st so that they can have preliminary scores, which they can edit at their event and change if need be, and that they really focus on the pitch that the girls are presenting at the event. So that way they already have an idea about the technical areas, their ideation, their entrepreneurship, and they're really just focusing on the presentation that the girls are delivering and the overall impression. So that way, when they go into it, they'll already have an idea of what the girls have worked on and make an informed decision at the event. The scores need to be entered by May 22nd by the judges. You, as a regional ambassador, will not input the scores. So it's really important that your judges input their scores during or immediately after the event. That way, everything's in the system, and you as a regional ambassador need to follow up with them to make sure that they have inputted them, and you have access to see their scores, and you have access to see whether or not they've submitted the scores. So keep that in mind, that that's vitally important to making sure that the girls have the required number of evaluations. So they need to have at least 3 scores for your event. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pause for Q&A and see what questions you might have.
Katie?
Yeah.
This is Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Can mentors do virtual judging? So I know they can't judge at the regional pitch event, but could they do virtual judging?
Yep, so I have a slide about that in the next one, but mentors can do virtual judging. So And the reason why that is because the mentors, when they're doing virtual judging, they're going to be seeing teams from around the world. Our system is going to show them teams from around the world, from Kenya, Kazakhstan, India, who do not have enough scores yet. So it's going to put preference on those teams that don't have enough scores yet, and will automatically show them teams from outside of their region. So that's why mentors can participate as virtual judges, and we really encourage that too, because mentors are super invested in Technovation, and it's a great experience for them to see all the different ideas that are coming in from around the world. So we do actively encourage mentors to be virtual judges so they can look at all of the online submissions. And that's a great question, Jean. Claudia actually asked me that the other day as well.
One follow-up on that. Will they only be able to judge teams that are not in the division they mentored in? So because that virtual judges. So if I'm a mentor for the junior division, will I only see senior division?
Yeah, it'll show you
results.
Right. It'll show you, if you are a virtual judge and you are a mentor, it will show you teams outside of your region and those who are not in your team's division. So you're
okay. Last year there were a few that, from what I understood, I didn't do it, but there were some people that actually were judging in the division they were in. That was hearsay, so you might want to just make sure the platform is correct.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. But regardless, they shouldn't be seeing teams that are within their region. And so that's something, an expectation to set with your virtual judges. Some of them might sign up. We really encourage you to recruit virtual judges, but they might think that they're only going to see Venezuelan girls or only Minnesota girls, and it's important that they understand that they'll be seeing girls from all over the world. Let's see. So I see a question from Doris, and she said, do all judges need to be female? No, you can have male judges. It's up to you. If you would prefer to have female-only judges, then that's totally fine. That's up to your discretion as a regional ambassador. And then Esther said, last year we had a problem with Troll evaluating some of the teams. And Esther, you bring up a really valid concern, and that's why this year for our virtual judges, we are having them complete a mandatory training. Last year the training was optional, and it's also going to be invite only. So you as a regional ambassador will have the opportunity to invite individuals to serve as virtual judges. We want this to be an honor and a privilege to serve as a Technician judge. And I think that will go a long way towards help preventing some of these trolls. And also keep in mind that our team goes through the scores with a fine-tooth comb to look at discrepancies and to look at really low scores. Like, no one should be getting a 0. That's impossible, because a 0 is means you didn't do anything. You didn't submit the deliverable, which means you have an incomplete submission. So a 0 is impossible. So really looking, and if they get a 1, if they get like only 5 points, we're going to be looking through and seeing who has extremely low scores and putting those girls back into the judging pool so that they have another chance, because the score was suspiciously low by this judge who's evaluated several teams with extremely low scores. So we look at patterns and trends as well. But the judge training, mandatory judge training, invite only. And also this year we're rolling out a series of incentives. So this isn't public yet, but we will make it very soon. But there will be some incentives for judges to make it an honor, like I mentioned, to serve as a Technovation judge. And what's the list requirement to be a judge, as in skills? So I think, Isaac, that looking at the Technovation curriculum and the judging rubric to see the subject area, like, do they have ideation, entrepreneurship, technical skills, pitching skills, or their background, if they have a background in the Technovation curriculum subject areas. So that's what I would think you should look at in terms of skills. I think it's a combination of skills, their inspiration, and the ability to inspire the girls and be career role models for them, as well as companies that you currently work with. And anyone else can feel free to jump in. We have several different veteran regional ambassadors like Jean, Mia, Rachel, Esther. We have several different veteran regional ambassadors. So if you have additional comments about the skill set that you should look for in a judge, I think that would be welcomed for Isaac.
This is Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi. So I went for recruiting judges. I mean, I work for the Massachusetts Technology Leadership Council, and I do a lot of recruiting through that membership, but I also go to a lot of networking events and very specific types of networking events. So I would go to UX UI networking events and other kinds of things around the city, and a wide variety of skill sets in my judges. So I'd meet people and talk to them and things of that sort and bring them in. And then of course because we have we have a large live event, I'm assigning teams to these judges. So I make sure that I have a UX UI person looking at different assigned to the different teams. So and I generally would do about four scores per team. We had an incident where someone didn't actually submit their scores. They showed up, they just didn't seem to submit them, but it worked out okay because we had 3 other judges. So definitely make sure, I would say definitely if you can, I tried not to give the judges more than 4 or 5 teams to score because I think that starts to overload them, and they really enjoy taking the time to invest in looking at the team's work. So rather than throw 10, so that's how I approach it. Again, getting a wide variety of business people, like all kinds of different disciplines, and then making sure to know what those disciplines are and spreading them throughout the teams in the region.
Yeah, I also want to comment on that. That's what I put on the chat box, that the model we're going for this year is that we want to have each judge reviewing about 6 submissions, because I find that if we're growing the region, it's just too much of a reviewing effort for all the judges. So I was actually putting there to ask Katie whether this model is okay, but after hearing the other veteran veteran regional ambassador also confirming that, I think that's a good model, because I think if we ask the judges to judge all of the submissions, this could drive the judges away.
I would agree with that. Because I have had previous years where we were short and we did give 10 teams per judge, and they did it. I think that, but I think that there was a point about midway through where I was hearing from them about like, wow, this is a lot of work. And you don't want them to hit that point. That's the thing. And the thing is, now I have a solid roster of 60 to 70 judges that are always looking to come back. So that's the difference. But shorthanded, and that's what you got to do. And there's certain people who are more willing to take it on. And again, that's sort of like, hey, can you take another team? Hey, can you take another team? That kind of thing. That would just be, but I don't stop recruiting till I know I have enough.
I had another question from Elena, and she asked if girls from outside of their capital city in Uzbekistan can attend their regional pitch event. And the answer is yes, that we would certainly encourage girls from outside of the regional pitch event, whether they're coming from other provinces or other states, to attend. So we would definitely encourage that. And if they can't make it in person, we've had teams virtually attend through Skype. So we recognize that sometimes transportation can be a huge logistical barrier, especially if you live in a very large country. So if the girls want to dial in on Skype or Google Hangout and present, that's certainly doable as well. And then Esther asked you a question, Rachel, about how your judges score on the chat.
So the thing is, our event is set, I think it's May 12th. Yeah, it's set on Saturday, May 12th. But I'm going to have them all get their assignments starting by May 1st, so they can start reviewing online, and I encourage that. And they all do it, actually, and they start saving scores. But I tell them to bring their own laptops to the events, And I also have we have some spare surfaces. So I also bring some spare laptops from our office so that they can, if people don't have one or need to use one, they can log in and submit their final score at the live event.
Mm-hmm.
We also have paper. I also will have paper rubrics available. So if there's someone who doesn't have a computer and has to wait to use somebody else's, they can write things down and make notes as well.
Just a comment relative to if Rachel, your event is May 12th, ours is also. Last year, we had all the judges trying to log in. And I've talked to Joe about this, but that we got to make sure that the load on the system can withstand. If you have 70 judges and I have 70 judges, that's 140 judges trying to work in a short window of time. So just a note for you, Katie, to.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. So that's definitely something we've given Joe, our software developer, feedback on. But I think that, having those paper copies as a backup, and worst comes to worst, absolute worst, if they're not able to submit them at the event, then the judges each take pictures of their score sheet to make sure they don't actually lose anything. And then they submit them afterwards. But that's not ideal. The ideal is them submitting it at the event so you have full visibility.
Right.
I have another tip to share. Because I think our judges are really busy. And then for technical judging, I actually recruited a couple technical judges. So they will be the one that downloading all the submissions and load it onto mobile devices and check out all the functionalities against their screenshot. And then they will provide a suggested score for the technical session as well as some comments to share. So all the other judges who are busy with on the business side, they can use this as a reference. And on the live pitch day, they will actually see the actual demo to verify some of their concerns. And I think that would also offload the workload for most of the judges, because you would just have, and then this allow also a more in-depth technical judge.
I thought the technical was being taken care of by Technovation itself, because I didn't. Isn't there like a technical checklist that?
Yeah. So
yeah.
So because on the technical checklist, it doesn't really say how deep, but I mean, if you really want to check all the functions are being fully, because the screenshot can be coming from their original prototype, and there's a lot of online tools that they allowing them to do a prototype that looks like a real software, but without actual implementation. So if you're load the application on mobile devices and actually verify that these screenshots that you got are actually real implementation rather than just from those online prototype software.
The technical side is always hard to deal with. I think that's a nice idea to have technical judges looking at all of them and making suggestions to judges. But we still rely on the judges actually doing their own assessment.
I think that then you will need all the judges to have the right technical skills to compiling the source code and loading the code onto their mobile devices. And then now we're opening up to both iOS and Android. And then you will need the judges to have access to both Android and iOS device. I think that's just not quite feasible. So I think.
Well, I understand. Right, I understand that, and that's a nice concept, and I think it's great if you have a small group. But when across the world, when there are, I don't know how many submissions you're expecting. If there's 1,000 submissions, that will not happen consistently around the world.
Yeah, I'm only suggesting this for the regional pitch. I'm not suggesting this for the world level.
But then,
I would agree that it's good to have someone who does have technical skills and a technical background to evaluate the apps. But I don't think having all the judges have that background is necessary, because there's also the critical entrepreneurship parts of the curriculum too, the marketing, the pitching, and the entrepreneurship side of things. So just want to keep that in mind. But also, Claudia had a question about the team that wins, that goes to semifinals, will need to pitch in English to the virtual judges in the semifinal. So I want to clarify something. So when they are being judged virtually in the semifinal round, the judges are going to be evaluating their demo video and their pitch video. So it's not going to be like a virtual webinar or live or over Skype. The judges are going to be looking at these submissions on their own time, at their own pace, over the course of the semifinals, the 2 weeks that we have the semifinals open. So keep in mind that they're not pitching live, and that's why it's really important that their demo video and pitch video is captioned, subtitled, or dubbed in English if they are speaking in another language. All right, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute everyone. There's some background noise. I'm gonna go head back to the presentation. All right, so I think I covered this earlier, that we really encourage you to recruit virtual judges, that the online training is required, and that they're going to be viewing submissions from around the world, not students who are from your region, and that we want them to commit to reviewing 5 submissions to ensure that all of our teams have enough scores. And these are some suggestions for people who can be a virtual judge. Mentors, because it gives them a chance to evaluate teams from around the world, and a lot of them are super invested. Sponsors, who you want to, maybe that's part of your sponsor package, that you engage their employees as online judges. And then your professional network and yourself, you can be a virtual judge as well. So we'd love for you, because you didn't get a chance maybe to judge at your regional pitch event, you can judge submissions from other countries. So these are some commonly asked questions, and they weren't asked today, but I think they might come up later. So what if I have 10 teams in one division and less than 10 in another? So you can choose to host a division-only event. So you can have it just for seniors if you didn't have enough junior division teams, or both divisions can participate, but the one that did not have enough teams would be judged virtually. And so that needs to be made very clear, and expectations set for those girls that they are not going to be judged in person at the event. Only the senior division is, because there needed to be 10 teams. So setting that expectation with the girls who are going to be judged virtually, but they can still attend your event, they just will not be judged in person. What if I have a total of 10 teams, but from mixed divisions? So this is not an official regional pitch event because you did not meet the number of teams for either division. And this is to make sure that it's fair across the board. If there's a region that has 5 junior division teams and they have someone that's pushed through to the semifinals, then they had a greater chance of advancing on to the semifinals than a region that had 10 teams or 12 teams. So it's important that we have that consistent around the world. I mentioned already the number of finalist teams, that there's 6 junior, 6 senior, and that we do not have allocations per country. So it's not that, oh, well, how many teams are going to advance to the finals for my country? It's not based on that. It's based on merit in our judging system. So keep that in mind. Will Technician offer financial support for my event? We do have our grant application, which I'm really happy to see that so many of you applied for the regional pitch event grant, but this is not guaranteed year to year. So this depends on our funding stream. So this year we're really excited because Google.org sponsored us and gave us money specifically to distribute to our chapters for regional pitch events. But this isn't always the case. It depends on our funders and the funding situation, because we are not a foundation and we are a nonprofit as well. So keep that in mind. Can I host multiple regional pitch events? Yes, as long as you have met the requirements. So these are all questions that I've gotten from regional ambassadors pretty routinely. So if you have a question, make sure to check out the FAQ in case it's answered there. Celebration events, just briefly. Unlike regional pitch events, these are unofficial. So they're not going to be on our platform, and it's not an official competitive event. So it's like I mentioned earlier, it's very flexible for people who the regional pitch event calendar does not match with the local students calendar. So it can be hosted anytime after April 25th. We've even had celebration events that happened in August, and we still recognize those. Less than 10 teams are present, so it's a great option for that. In the past, we've had celebration events where they had enough teams, to be official, but they wanted to do it as a trial run, as a celebration event, without just to get a feel for how the event would go. So, and this year, we're happy that they're now an official regional pitch event. So celebration events can be a bit more flexible, especially if you're new as a regional ambassador as well. So if your judges if you are giving away prizes and you want to recognize the girls, that's great. Just keep in mind that they're going to be officially judged online by our virtual judges. And the girls need to be aware of that so that their expectations are clear that they're going to be judged online. And then finally, no event, the submissions are automatically going to be entered into the virtual pool. If you choose not to host an event, then the girls are automatically going to enter that virtual pool, and they will not have an option of choosing anything. They're just automatically entering that virtual category. And then those are judged by our virtual judges worldwide. So finally, these are just some of the resources that I covered during today's webinar. You can check out on your own the judging rubric, submission guidelines, award structure. Those are going to be really great for you as a resource, but also for your mentors and your students. So your job is to communicate all of this information to your local teams so that they are crystal clear on what's to be expected. All right, so we have a little bit of extra time. So let's see if there's anything else in the chat box. So Mia, if you have full capacity at 15 teams, and the 16th team, they can be judged virtually. So it would be great if they were invited, but I understand that because of budgeting concerns and so forth, that you may not physically be able to host them. And so what I would encourage you is that they are very clear that it's not that they can't compete, because they are competing, but to encourage them to enter that virtual pool. I know that's a very tricky situation, so you want to handle that very carefully with the girls and their mentor. And Esther, so Mia said, Esther was right. If you announce an official event, they are able to register. They can select the regional pitch event on the platform. So they will have that capability on the platform. We're not going to block that team from registering for your event. So that's where you need to be able, and Mia and Esther is right. So you can choose the teams too. You can select them and put them into your regional pitch event. There's two ways that students sign up. One is that they sign up for your event on their own, or two, the regional ambassador will place them into their regional pitch event. So I think maybe in your region, it would be best if you place the teams into your event, but they will still have that capability to sign themselves up. So I think you need to message that to this team very carefully. All right, any other questions from anyone?
This
Okay.
is
Go ahead.
Jean. I have too many things going because my machine's in. All right. Many things going. Okay, so our judging, we want to end it sooner than, because our event is May 12th. We want the judges to run their judging from maybe May 1st to May 10th online, and then finish their judging at our event on May 12th. Is there a way? I know that the judging platform usually says results need to be submitted by May 20th at 7 p.m. or whatever it is, or 5 p.m. Pacific time. Is there a way that you could say that they could actually annotate something that regional pitch events might deadlines might be different. It doesn't have to say when each of our events might be, but
yeah, no, I think that's a good point, Jean, and that's something that we could certainly consider is that for judges who are pitching or at regional pitch events, that the deadline for submitting scores is based on the local regional ambassador's discretion. So if you want to set an earlier deadline, that's completely fine. I think that I'll have to talk about that with our marketing team because it just might be confusing messaging that to all of our judges. But if you message that to your judges and say, locally, our deadline is this. So please keep that in mind that for Minnesota, our submissions are due at this day, at this time, sharp.
That's all well and good, but I can tell you that our judges still were confused when they were on the platform when it said judging ends on May 20th. And so, because I can tell you that no matter how many emails we send or how many Twitter messages we send, people don't read them. So if there's just some way to have
like
some annotation.
Or a subheading or something that says regional deadlines are based on the regional ambassador's discretion. Yeah,
it would just be nicer.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very clear with our judges that they were doing their, if they were judges for the showcase, they didn't touch their scores after the showcase, after the regional event. That was it. You're submitted, you're done.
Well, right, that they understood. It was the fact that we wanted them to finish judging online before our pitch event at a certain date so that we had at least some vestige of knowledge of who might our top teams be. We give awards to the top teams in the state of Minnesota at our pitch event.
Exactly. So the thing is, like, we have our pitch event May 12th. They'll be scoring virtually up to that point and finalize and submit them at the showcase. And I instruct them at the showcase, this is it. You don't touch these scores again.
That's fine. We don't need to talk about it. I don't think we need to waste everybody's time.
Okay.
So we can always continue this conversation offline, Jean, about setting that deadline. I know you have some of these events like Rachel's and Jean's that have like 50 teams who are participating. Sometimes we have to talk through these components of it because it requires a little bit of a different format or structure. So Esther asks, how many judges are going to evaluate a team in the semifinal round? Is there a minimum number? Is there a minimum number of scores or judges? I wasn't clear by your question. Oh, is there a minimum number of judges? So each team in the semifinal round should have 3 scores. And a lot of that requires your help in recruiting virtual judges so that globally our pool of girls has a minimum of 3 scores. So if we have 11, last year we had almost 1,200 submissions, so you can do the math on that. It requires a lot of judge power. All right, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna end today's webinar, but lots of great questions. I'm so glad that all of you are thinking through this very deeply, and you heard a couple of different of our veteran regional ambassadors who have a lot of experience hosting these events. So they are always super open to asking. I'm just going to volunteer them to help answer your questions offline too. If you want to get in touch with Jean and Rachel and Mia, I think they offer some really great perspectives and best practices as well. So thank you everyone for joining, and I'm super excited to see all the different pitch events that are happening around the world and looking at our global cohort of girls who are participating. So thank you for just diving right in and organizing these events in your local community. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.